Welcome to Kick Back with Chris. Kick Back with Chris, the martial arts podcast.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is where you guys are right now. I hope you're having a great week so far. Welcome to another episode of Kick Back with Chris. Yes, we're back on already. It's not a New Year's resolution as such, but I'm just trying to get myself a bit more organised this year and keeping on top of the near weekly, we're nearly there, the near weekly episodes of the show. So, later on today, we are going to be joined by guest Duncan, who he's actually been a bit of a long-time contributor to the show. He's been involved with various discussions, sent requests in, which is always cool. And he's going to be talking to us about something that I will openly admit to having absolutely next to no knowledge on whatsoever, which is historical European martial arts training. Now, I think it's fair to say a lot of people will have seen this sort of thing going on before, but might not necessarily have a full appreciation or understanding of how it's trained. So yeah, Duncan's going to be coming on to tell me and you guys a little bit about what it is that he does and those guys with those swords and all the other cool stuff are getting up to. So to start with, as we try to always do each week, just a quick rundown of news. Now I'm going to try and keep this one quick. I do have a tendency of waffling on a little bit with this, so I'm going to try and keep it quick. It's a balance between getting the information out and not talking about it for too long, and it's really difficult. Anyway, we're going to start off with a post from Scott, Scott's jumped on the podcast promotion group. Thank you for using it to promote his competition. I'm presuming it's his or he's part of the competition. It's listed as the Strong as Steel Championships 2019. It's on Sunday the 3rd of February 2019 at the Magna-Science and Adventure Centre in Sheffield. It says on here, event hosted by the Kangol Black Belt Academy and Force Fusion Pro Audio. Force Fusion Pro Audio, that sounds good. It looks to be a Taekwondo event from the photos, WTF or WT as they like to be called now. Taekwondo group, so go check that one out there. Now it's listed, they're having both the patterns and sparring at the event, so if you jump into our podcast martial arts event promotion group or get in touch with Scott, I think it's Cooley, it's Coulie, it might be cool with a silent IE. But anyway, I've spelt it for you. Apologies if I've just butchered your surname, Scott, but I'm sure you've had it before, to be fair. Or maybe it's just me, I'm a bit thick. But yeah, go check that out. The next one up we've got from Antonio, who's jumped on to let everybody know about the Lordswood Combat Tri-Series 2019, which is the 10th of February. Well, there's three. So the 10th of February, hence it being a Tri-Series. Wow, I'm having a good day today. So 10th of February, 2nd of June, and the 17th of November. It says the registration is now on. Listed in there, the disciplines are points, mat continuous, ring K1 light. The event will also act as part of the qualifiers for the ICO World Championships. All ring sports are for ICO open titles. I'm just reading that as it's listed. There is a massive website link, which I'm not going to try and read because it's huge. But yeah, if you get in touch with Antonio Santarelli, he'll sort that one out for you. And then his next post is to thank me for adding him. Not a problem, dude. Without you guys putting this in the promotion group, I don't have any news for the podcast. Well, I do, but I have to go and search for it, and it's not that I'm lazy. It's just it's easier if it's in one place. Okay, so the next post is coming from Jenny Mills, who I've just recently reconnected with on Facebook, because isn't that great? Facebook's brilliant. And it's for details on the Anthony Pillage Summoning of the Warriors Memorial Camp 2019, which is going to be taking place between the Friday, July the 19th through to July the 21st. It's looking at it's like one of these weekend training camps. I'm going to click on the link, which hopefully doesn't mess up my Facebook, because it does that sometimes. Let me see if I can get some details of where it is. I should really have had this printed out before now, shouldn't I? Right, here we go. So, it's I think it's Polyapes. 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 All the spelling going on today. Scout Camp, Blundell Lane, Stoke d'Alban. So it's D''Abernon. I'm not even going to try. Coburn, Surrey. These are all these new places I'm learning. It's like a geography lesson. For full venue information, see... I've got to say the place again. www. Right, I'm just going to spell it out. Polyapes.com. Okay, the early bird price is £135 per person. If paid in full by Friday the 31st of May, late payers, don't be a late payer, or do if it's better for them, I don't know. £155 per person. It's a non-ticketed event, payment and booking facilities will be available from the 1st of February. There's loads of information on there about what's going to be going on. There is a contact number of 07912 639 170. I'm assuming that's for Jenny. Or you can email jenny.mills@gmail.com. I think this is part of the BKKU as well. Anyway, go check it out, obviously, in memory of the awesome, fabulous Mr. Anthony Pillage. So get in touch with them, and either with Jenny or Kevin, who I'm hoping to have on the show soon. And I'm sure they'll be able to help you out with any questions that you might have. Okay, so moving on. I'm going to go up to the next one is from Mr. Neil Kirkland, another person who's been on our show before, and it's to let everybody know that on Saturday the February the 2nd at 1:30 p.m. at Trumpington Sport. I love the name of that place. Every time I get to say that place, Trumpington Sport in Trumpington. Brilliant. And Neil's going to be holding a Sandy Holt seminar. Actually, I was really fortunate to be on Sandy's. Got to say this carefully now. How do you say it? Is it Bang Blog Podcast? Anyway, Sandy's podcast, his awesome podcast. If you've not met Sandy before or you've not seen his podcast, do go check it out because it's really good fun. Sandy's an awesome guy, fantastic martial artist, but just a really, really cool guy as well. So if you're interested in getting involved with that, I'm actually going to click on the link now and see what's what. Saturday, February 2nd, 1:30 till 4:30 at Trumpington Sport, which is brilliant. Love that. And is there any more information in there? Yeah, £25 per person, a chance to train with Thai boxing legend Sandy Holt, fully inclusive. That's the important part, fully inclusive. Yeah, obviously, those of you, if you've not listened to it, go back and listen to episode, whichever one it was quite a while back, with Neil Kirkland, and we're discussing inclusivity within the martial arts. It's a good episode, as they all are, but no, go check that one out. And is there any more? There is one more from Mr. Steve Rowe. I believe it's a post just to discuss his Tai Chi coaching program. It's saying here that it's now open to book a space. There's only 15 places. So if you're interested in learning or getting involved with a Tai Chi coaching program, if you get in touch with Steve, Mr. Steve Rowe, I'm sure he'll be able to help you out. He also lists on here some details of Matt Hood, who was one of the people that was involved last time around. So if you're wanting more information on how he got on, I'm sure if you get in touch with Matt, he will be able to let you know a little bit more about that. Now, the last one I'm not going to actually talk about. There is actually somebody else posted in the podcast martial arts promotion group to actually advertise their own podcast. I think they kind of misunderstood what the point of the group was. That or they were just trying to be blatantly cheeky. But the idea for my martial arts podcast event promotion group is for people to go on there to promote events that I talk about on my podcast, not for you to try and sell your podcast to my podcast listeners. I'm all up for mutual promotion and all that, but, at least drop me a message first before promoting your podcast in my podcast group. Just kind of common courtesy, isn't it? So one more. Actually, this one wasn't scheduled to be mentioned, but it's a little bit of a cool thing that happened for me. And now, I really should... What I need to start doing every episode is having a list of previous episodes with previous guests on, so I could just really professionally sounded pull out the number and the name of the person and all that sort of thing, which I haven't got, so I need to do that. But I'm going to say about 10 episodes back, we had Mr. Steve Lawson on, film director, producer, somebody I've worked with a few times now on various films. And in that interview, we actually talked about a movie called The Silencer that I worked on back in the sort of mid-2000s, around sort of 2004, 2005, somewhere around that. And we were talking about the DVD release and all that sort of thing. And it's a really cool one. It's just been re-released on Amazon. So if you've got an Amazon Prime account, or if you've got Amazon and but you buy videos on Amazon, you can go on there. It's a digital download, or if you're on Amazon Prime, it's free. You already got it. You've paid for it already. So you go check it out. If you look for The Silencer, I'll actually post a link in the podcast group, and I'll try and get it on the show notes as well. But you can go. It's a great fun movie. Obviously, it's low budget independent martial arts feature, and obviously it is from back in the sort of mid-2000s. It holds it really well, though, I think. And you actually get to see Steve in it. Steve plays one of the roles in there as well, so you'll get to see Steve in action. It was directing and starring in his own film, which is always pretty cool. But you also, for a bonus, you get to see a really young, sort of 24, fresh-faced me. Well, I say fresh-faced, but during that filming, I'd actually got a pretty mad muscle tear in my right leg, and we had to rewrite a load of the scenes that I do get to kick about a little bit, including a cool end fight scene with the lead actor Glenn Salvage. But I wrecked my leg pretty badly early on in that film, and there's a couple of scenes I get to do some acting as well. You get to hear me talk. Which was really scary at the time, but I had to do some punching on some bags instead of kicking them. But yeah, you can go check that out. And another cool little inside tidbit for you. There's a scene where I'm in a gym training, there's a meeting's going on. That's actually my old martial arts studio that I used to have, that is now just a big, damp, empty shell since we moved out 5 years ago. So you get to see what it used to look like. So that's cool, a little bit of history. So we're going to move on now to our interview with Duncan. I've not recorded this one yet. In fact, I'm about to in about 20 minutes. So you're going to be on a learning journey with me with this one, I would guess, unless you're already an expert, or unless you're one of Duncan's friends who's checking this podcast out because he's posted it and you're already doing this. So you'll get to hear me learning about historical European martial arts and everything involved. So enjoy, and I'll speak to you after.
Enjoy our podcast? Please remember to subscribe, rate and review Kickback with Chris on iTunes today.
Okay, so joining me on the line now, we have Duncan McAvoy. I've got that right, haven't I?
You have, yes.
Fantastic. I've been practicing.
Good man.
Now, for those that have been listening to the show, Duncan's actually chipped in a few times with their episodes with some ideas and some feedback and stuff. So thank you for that.
No problem.
It's appreciated. And today is going to be a bit of a cool learning journey for me, because I will openly admit to knowing next to absolutely nothing about the subject that we're going to be talking about, which is going to be, and I'll see if I can get this right as well, historical European martial arts. Is that right?
Correct.
Fantastic. So, as I say, yeah, other than the little bits of videos and things that I've seen on Facebook and social media, and obviously in films and things as well, this is a subject that's completely new to me. So perhaps we could start with, how did you get into this?
Basically, it's one of these damn things, ever since I was a kid, I think most of us watch old films like Crimson Pirate, which is my favourite, or Scaramouche and all that, with all the old sword fights in. You think, I'd love to do that. And then over the years, done a bit of archery, played rugby and stuff. It's not really relevant, except that you learn how to get beaten up a lot. But always in the back of my head, I always wanted to know how to do, not just primarily sword fighting, because swords are the cool weapon that everyone likes, but weapon fighting in general, as you see in the films. Well, how it was actually done, rather than what you see in films. You know, films are for films. They're choreography. They're there to tell a story. I enjoy them. It's not historically correct, but that's not what it's there for. So over the years, I've done different martial arts, tried a bit of fencing, tried a bit of kendo, which are all good, but they're sports. They're primarily sports, and that's not what I was interested in. And then in the year 2000, I went over to the Royal Armies to watch a demonstration of basically samurai horseback archery.
Sure.
From the guys from the Tokugawa Shrine in Japan. So a gang of us went over there. When we got there, a friend of mine was in a wheelchair, so we were sorting him out and going in. And I got a phone call from one of the guys who'd already gone in and said, "Dunk, you need to get in here now." And I was like, "What? Okay." He went, "No, get in here. As soon as you get in, there's a hall. Come into it." Walked into the hall, and there's a load of people all fighting with swords. And I'm like, wow. I didn't realise, just by pure luck, it was the inaugural meeting of the European Historical Combat Guild that used to be and still is based in the Royal Armies in Leeds.
Sure.
So I seen this old guy with a white beard who looked like the guy in charge, so I went up and started talking to him. And that's how I got into it. I then spent a few years going over to the Royal Armies at least once a week, sometimes twice, to learn from them. And then eventually he said, "No, you're fine, you're good enough, you can start your own group if you want to." And it went on from there.
Fantastic. Well, the old guy with the white beard's always in charge of martial arts, isn't it? That's
John Waller. John Waller, his name was. He only passed away last year, but he was an amazing fighter, amazing guy.
Cool. with regards to obviously this sector, what should we say, or this side of martial arts and combat, from what I've looked into it, it's just as diverse as. It's difficult, this, isn't it? Because I don't want to say traditional martial arts, because this is traditional martial arts. But I suppose for a lot of people, when they hear martial arts, they think of karate gis and black belts.
Yeah.
But obviously with that side, obviously, you have your stand up, you have your grappling, you have your hard style, your soft style, and I'm presuming with this side of things as well, there is a wide variety. It's not obviously just sword work. There are a lot of other things. So could you tell us a little bit about the diversity of the system as a whole?
My God, yeah. It's as diverse or not. Basically, yeah, Europe had as rich and as diverse a martial culture as the Eastern nations did, as almost every culture does.
Okay.
But with Europe, because European history is littered with basically Europeans fighting each other or then going to other countries and fighting them.
Sure.
There's a huge amount of martial arts. The trouble with European mindset is that, well, basically as gunpowder and guns got better, all this stuff practically died out. And in some cultures like Japan, like China, Korea, etc., they keep these traditions going. We didn't. So this was a way of looking at old history books, old treatises, anything we could get hold of that talked about the fighting arts and styles throughout history and trying to recreate them. So obviously within that, yeah, you've got weapons, you've got hand-to-hand. Wrestling is obviously huge. There's lots of different wrestling styles from all different ages. So you've got lots of different styles from there's very little from sort of ancient Greece, ancient Rome, things like that, but there's still guys trying to recreate what they can from those eras.
Okay.
And then as you come more towards the modern day, there's more and more information you can get hold of. So right up to, you've got guys looking at sort of military saber manuals from the 1800s. So it's as diverse as that. You're talking couple of thousand years worth. Now, most focus is probably from the medieval period up to the modern day.
Wow, so
that's
okay.
That's where you can start getting a decent amount of information.
So there's some people. Oh, right, I didn't realise. So there's some people are actually, putting a lot of effort into trying to obviously recreate systems that are no longer exist, that records on are quite difficult to get hold of. I didn't realise that.
Very difficult, and almost all these systems don't have a lineage. They died out. None of them have a sort of lineage that goes all the way through, which can be a blessing and a curse. It's a curse because it makes it really difficult to try and figure out, well, what they actually did, and how they actually did it. But the opposite side is that we don't have a lot of opinion. So because there's not that direct lineage, there's not a lot of masters or teachers in between who've put their own sort of slant on it. That's okay, because we're doing that now. But you've got to, because there's only so much information you can actually get. I always equate it to a lot of these sort of medieval stuff. It would be like, say someone gave you knew nothing about Shakespeare whatsoever, and someone gave you a small book of crib sheets that like a student would have used for exam practice. And you're trying to recreate the complete works of Shakespeare from that. Yeah. That's the sort of task that we're trying to actually do.
Okay, so I'm presuming with this as well, there are various levels that people can train in. So, like, obviously, you've kumite, or you've got point sparring, you've got light continuous, you've got full contact with regards to the combat systems that people are probably familiar with. Is it the same with this? Is there different levels at which people can get into it? Just somebody who's sort of a casual participant, right the way through to people that are, really full on smashing each other with this.
Absolutely. There's guys who approach this from a very academic point of view. So what they're primarily interested in is the historical research, and then trying to interpret that, but may not be so into basically beating each other up. You then get all the way through to guys like me who mostly enjoy just fighting people. And there's different approaches. There's like some guys who absolutely stick to the historical research. There's guys like me who try to interpret and extrapolate and work with other martial arts to try and see what fits in and what actually doesn't. Basically, whatever way you'd like to approach this, you could do it from an almost non-physical way to an incredibly physical way.
I mean, that must be tricky, because it's not like you can just pop online to your favourite martial arts supplier and buy yourself a suit of armour and a broadsword. So, I mean, how do you come about the equipment and
You can now.
Oh, right, okay.
You couldn't when I started. 20 years ago when I started, it was very... I mean, to be fair, what I started with was a few mock poles. that was it. Now there's good suppliers out there. There's a good friend of mine who runs a company called The Night Shop.
Okay.
They do a lot of reenactment stuff and a lot of sort of what we call wall hanger stuff. It looks pretty, but he also has what he calls a HEMA shop, where he actually develops and makes his own brands of practice weapons, armour. When we say armour, it's modern pattern. We're not actually buying full suits of armour because they're really expensive.
Sure.
So we used there's actually there's companies all over the place. There's Black Fencer, there's Neyman, who produce many jackets and so on for people to use.
Okay.
There's a lot of companies out there now. I'd say in the past 10 years or so, there's a lot of them that have really come up, and there's an awful lot of good equipment.
Excellent.
Which allows you to buy historically accurate swords or more sort of modern polyurethane training swords. So there's everything out there, but it's becoming more now. But if you start looking, you probably, once you find one of these suppliers, you'll probably find the rest.
Sure. So is there an active competition scene as well within the...
Yeah, there is, very, very much so. More and more getting bigger. There's Fight Camp, which is in this country, is probably the biggest one in this country. There's Swordfist, which is over in Sweden, I think, which is massive now. In America, there's a lot of competitions. And again, the competition side of thing is different to a lot of the historical reenactment. I don't use the word reenactment because not reenactors, but the historical research. There's lots of crossover, obviously. But like anything, if you want to train for a competition, then probably some of the historical accuracy has to go by the wayside because basically because it's very, very dangerous. And it's all good. The competitions are fantastic. That sounds like I'm really down on comps. I'm not the fan. They're really, really good, and it's a good way to actually test what you've actually what you've actually learned. So.
Absolutely. So, I mean, forgive my lack of knowledge. With regards to some of these sort of competitions, are they multi-skilled, or do people tend to go in with a focus on one particular weapon type, or do people cross-compete, do different things?
They do. I mean, they're mostly what they'll do is pair like for like. So you'll have a long sword competition. You might have a steel long sword competition. You'll have a saber competition. Have a backsword competition. Some guys do allow mixed. So you basically have to choose whatever weapon you want to use within reason. You can't use like a great big pike against a guy with like a dagger. That's just not fair. I'm in the process of developing my own sort of version of a competition, which will be very mixed with different types of rules, but it's still early on, so I'm not going to shout about it yet. No,
I appreciate that, but you can come back on when it's ready.
Okay.
Fantastic. So I'm right in thinking that you have a school as well that you've been teaching.
Yeah.
Excellent. Can you tell us a little bit about it, when it started?
As I said, probably started a group in about 2005. I've changed groups and changed names and stuff because very much a learning process. Remember, one of the problems with not having a historical lineage is that a lot of us guys who started reasonably early on have gone down a lot of blind alleys and got a lot of things wrong. So at the moment, I run a group called HEMA Concepts, and that was just to tell people that it's I am a HEMA group, but I also do branch out and get information outside of HEMA. So only to bring it back in. I don't actually pretend to teach jiu-jitsu or anything like that. But I've got a good number of friends now who are martial arts teaching different martial arts, and I use them to test my ideas and also to grab ideas from them. We're sort of based we actually train in St. Helens, but it's the Liverpool area.
Sure.
And instead of being running it in one form or another since about 2005.
Fantastic. So I'm assuming that with the advent of the internet and then social media, it's allowed you guys to sort of connect up and sort of build I would assume a worldwide network.
There is, social media has been a godsend, to be honest with you. Swapping of information, and also just it helps you not go down so many blind alleys these days. And also, if you've got an idea, you can quickly throw it out there and see if anyone else can recreate it or test it, or just say you're talking absolute nonsense, which happens a lot.
Really, in the martial arts, nonsense, never.
Yeah, never.
I love it. So I would imagine that over the last sort of 5 to 8 years or so. This has really grown, and obviously now with Facebook and other social media platforms, I would imagine it's really exploded. And
I'd say in the past 10 years, it's really say the past 5, 6, 7 years, it really seems to be exploding now. There's groups popping up all over the place. When I first started, I pretty much knew everyone in the UK who was even interested in this. Knew a lot of the guys in America and stuff as well. But now there's so many groups out there, I don't know where half of them are.
Yeah. So, I mean, somebody that's listening to this now, like me, it's caught my attention. Someone is listening in that wanted to get into this. What would be the best route to take?
In this country, go on Facebook and look for UK HEMA. We put together a HEMA group, a gang of us called UK HEMA. And everyone in the UK who tends to run a group or involved in a group ends up on there in some form. So I'd go there and just put a shout out and tell people where you are and ask whether there's any groups within your area, and there almost certainly will be.
Fantastic. Well, I'm loving learning all about this. So what's the future then? Do you think for the industry? I suppose that is the right phrase, or this sector of training. What do you think is the next stage?
Well, I think it's just, firstly, we need to continue the way we're actually going. I said there's a lot of research out there, and there's a lot of ideas that change all the time.
Yeah.
So that side of it is just to keep going. The competitions, I think, will just grow from strength to strength. And for me, it's all about now being able to pool the information. There's a lot of people out there with a lot of good information, and obviously it's been very ad hoc, as in people talking to each other. So for me, the next stage would probably, the idea of a sort of governing body is one that we very, very much push back on. Not many people want it. In the States, there's a group called the HEMA Alliance that a lot of groups have sort of bandied themselves under. But even there, it's a very loose idea. They don't actually dictate rules and stuff onto people.
Sure.
They just help each other out. So for me, it doesn't grow in the community in that form. And things can be a bit more formal, but because I'm an old hand, I don't want it to be too formal.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I would imagine, again, coming back to the social media thing, being able to promote the videos and getting information out there, because it looks like great fun. And again, as I said earlier, to me, it seems like there are lots of levels that people can come in at. So they don't have to think, oh man, someone's gonna trash me with a mace or a big metal sword. As you say, there are practice weapons and other options as well.
There are, and anyone who's of any decent sort of person, you would start slowly. You're not going to throw someone in the deep end. It is weapons at the end of the day. Some of these are big, and no matter how safe you want to be. I mean, one of my main training partners, I broke his hand twice. He's broke mine once. So I'm 2-1 up there. It can get quite dangerous. But saying that as well, I said I played rugby for years, and I got hurt way more playing rugby than I ever have doing this. It's just one of these things. What you've got to remember is that if you're really trying to recreate the fight systems as they were back then, the guys back then, they weren't doing this for competition. They weren't doing this to score points. They were doing this to do two. We always say everybody has there's two rules that every group must actually follow when you actually training. Your priorities are don't get hit and hit the other person in that order.
Sure.
Because when you're dealing with these weapons, if you get hit even once, there's a good chance that's it. Game's over.
Absolutely.
Now, obviously, then armor developed and so on to sort of mitigate that to a certain extent. But they still generally, everybody that we know of, all the old fight masters and that would still agree that your priority is make sure you don't get hit and make sure you can hit them.
Cool.
And that's why I go around. I've worked with jiu-jitsu instructors, sambo instructors, karate.
Yeah.
My job takes me to a few different countries, so I've worked with guys in Israel and the US, different martial arts, who have let me join their groups, let me just get into the basics of what they do, and then I can use that to try and bring it back into HEMA to see, okay, well, let's see what actually fits in.
Excellent. So, I mean, is just thinking about this as you were explaining then, do you find that there's a lot of crossover, overlap in concepts and approaches between the various weapon systems, say from Japan and then obviously through to the UK. Do you see a blending and a crossover of some of the ideas?
Absolutely.
Right.
Totally. But I've been at this. This is the way I've trained. And this is one of my main opinions all the way through. The general principles and ideologies, like the principles, the body mechanics, and all that, is pretty much universal. So the general principles of how to fight with these weapons is the same whether you've got a katana, whether you've got a long sword, whether you've got a back sword. What changes is the mechanics of the weapon or the armor, the way it's designed, the way it's built, will then give you options. So one of my old teachers and mentors still now, Steve Tappan from Eskrima Concepts, he always said the general principles will be pretty much the same, but the mechanics of what you're using will then dictate what you can and can't do. So if I'm doing empty hand, obviously things like wrestling, boxing, strikes, that sort of thing. You see, I've looked at some of the Germanic wrestling texts, and I've worked with the Sambo wrestling guys and jiu-jitsu guys, and the number of times they just look at these old texts and go, yeah, we do that. Yeah, that's the same.
Wow.
And then you look at the sword techniques. So there's things like, there's Musashi's Book of Five Rings. There's ideas he puts forward there that there's a Germanic guy from the 15th century called Talhofer, so he's roughly about the same time. They never would have met, but he was roughly about the same time, and they're basically saying the same thing.
Sure. Yeah, because obviously there's a limited number of ways the human body can move, so there's going to be, now you're thinking about it, there's going to be some crossover. That's really fascinating. Has anybody ever attempted, out of interest, to say, well, okay, this is how I train with my sword, this is how you train with that sword, let's have a go and see what happens?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I've done that, yeah.
Excellent. And what did happen?
It depends who you're training with, because at the end of the day,
Sure.
when you see some of these YouTube videos and it says like HEMA versus Kendo, and you know what, it's not, it's that guy versus that guy.
Just the same as any martial arts system. It's like when you see somebody will post Muay Thai versus Taekwondo versus Karate versus this. It's the person, not the art, so to speak. Yeah, got you.
Yeah,
makes sense.
But what I've found is it depends. And I'm no expert on these side of things, but the more Kenjutsu side of guys, they're a bit more free roaming. Obviously, Kendo being more like, as far as I understand it, akin to fencing, so it's a bit more rigid. They tend to fight very linear, which is great for us because we sidestep a lot. That works well. But again, once you sort of settle down, so there tends to be, when I've done it a few times, and you tend to be either one or the other tends to have a little bit of an advantage until you go at each other for a few times, everything settles down, then it all sort of equals itself out. And what I've found is eventually everyone tends to sort of do roughly the same thing. Yeah. It just depends on who's quicker, who's better.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting to say that about footwork, because as Eddie Quinn, who used to say, your footwork, consider your footwork your delivery system. And I've noticed, especially with like you say, with fencing as well, that some of the footwork, you see very similar footwork in some martial arts systems as well, hand-to-hand systems as opposed to the weapon system. So again, I would imagine, like you were mentioning there with the sidestepping, there's a lot of similarities in the way that they're moving around. Really interesting. Love it.
Absolutely, yeah. The footwork especially, it's very, very similar.
Very
right. I'm studying an English guy at the moment called George Silver, who's got a bit of a weird reputation. But one of his main precepts, he's got a list of sort of basic principles and basic ideas of how to fight in general. Then he goes into specifics of different weapons and different things. His general principles are amazing, and now I fully understand them. I'm now looking back at everything from HEMA guys to street fight videos, and what I found is what he was explaining in the late 1500s, every good fighter I've watched so far, even today, does what he says.
Right.
It doesn't matter what you're doing. I've seen street fight guys as someone who's really good at it, and if you understand the principles he's talking about, I've watched them, and it's there. So in that way, it's really good to see that a guy in the late 1500s was teaching basic fight principles we still actually you can see today.
Wow. Interesting. So anybody that's listening in that wants to get in touch with you or are interested in coming along to your classes, what would the best way to get in touch?
Best way, if you can get onto Facebook and just look for HEMA Concepts, you'll find me. I also run another Facebook group called Practical HEMA, because I'm very much on the sort of, I like to be a very, very practical side of things. I'm really glad there's a lot of academic guys out there, because I'm not great at that, so I sort of basically steal all their ideas. But no, we sort of swap ideas and stuff. So yeah, HEMA Concepts or Practical HEMA, and you can get through to me from there.
Fantastic. And are there any events or anything coming up that people could perhaps come along to see or get involved with, just to get an idea of what this is all about?
Yeah, there's an event called Kings of the North, which again, if you put that into Google, you'll find it, which I'm teaching at in March.
Okay.
There's the Friendly Bunch of Martial Arts camp, which I'm teaching at as well. I think you're going to be there as well.
I'll be able to come and join in for that then. Brilliant.
Absolutely, yeah, you've got to come in.
Yeah.
I've got a friend who's a Taekwondo teacher, and he's come over a few times and done a bit of sword work and weapon work and stuff, and that was... I won't explain why, because I'm going to wait to see what you actually do, but at one point it was hilarious.
Okay.
But I'm not going to explain why. I'll wait till you actually try it.
I'm feeling like I'm being set up a little bit here now.
A little bit, yeah.
That's all good. I'm game for a laugh. It's all good.
It was good. But yeah, so I teach them, and I said there's an event called Fight Camp, which is run by a bloke called Matt Easton, who runs Scola Gladiatoria. I won't be at Fight Camp this year, but it's a big event. You might not be able to get tickets for it now, to be honest with you, but it's still worth looking at.
I'm really game for this one. As a kid, I used to make my mum do sword fighting. Mum, if you're listening, I used to make my mum do sword fighting in the living room with the old cartoon series that used to be on that Dog Tiny. And of course, you remember.
Yeah,
everybody remembers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I loved that, and I used to force my mum to sword fight with anything. It would be a wooden ruler or anything I could get hold of. And I think it's something that all boys and girls do at some point. You know, they put something in their hand, and they just instinctively do the sword fighting without even... it's like it's hardwired into our genetics.
My daughter does it now. She's now 10-year-old, but every time we walk into a shop and there's, say, like a toy lightsaber, she'll pick it up and start actually attacking me with it.
Yeah. Kids attacking us everywhere. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you very much for your time. That half an hour has absolutely flown by, and I'm sure look, if nobody else has enjoyed listening to this, I really enjoyed this conversation. No, joking aside, I think people will have loved it. It's a different side to the martial arts that, and it's what this show's all about, promoting it. So again, thank you very much.
What I'd just like to say is that if anyone who does, I've worked with lots of different martial arts groups, and what you said before, there's a lot of crossover. And what I found with the good HEMA schools and the good HEMA teachers, most of them are at the moment. If you study another martial art, I would really recommend trying to get to a HEMA school, even just a few times, especially if you're going to branch out into the area of weapons.
Sure.
The HEMA guys out there understand weapons really, really well. And I said there's been a lot of crossover, and I've done work with other martial arts groups, and I've learned a lot from them on the sort of hand-to-hand stuff, and they've learned a lot from me on the weapon side. So I would really recommend cross-train guys, because it's really, really useful.
Brilliant. Well, thanks a lot for your time, and thanks for sharing your expertise. It's been very, very enlightening, and I am now really excited about the prospect of being able to hit people with weapons. It sounds great.
Fantastic.
All right, thanks again, sir, and we'll catch up soon.
Thanks, Chris. Bye.
You're listening to Kick Back with Chris, the martial arts podcast, brought to you by www.onlinekicking.co.uk.
So guys, that was brilliant. I really enjoyed that. Big thanks to Duncan for his time coming on and sharing his knowledge. It's always good to learn something new. That was a new experience for me. As I say, I've seen people doing things before, but I never actually really considered it as being sort of a martial art. But obviously it is, So historical European martial arts. I have a feeling that the subject as a whole is a lot deeper and a lot bigger than we were able to discuss in that half an hour. But certainly it's caught my interest, as I'm sure it has probably some of you guys out there. So go visit the links Duncan mentioned, check it out, and get learning. So now it's that time in the show where we get to speak to Matt in his weekly Matt chat. Obviously, we didn't have one last week. That was my fault. I'll hold my hand up on that one. I got talking to Andy C for a little bit too long. Actually, on that, we're going to come back to Andy in a few minutes. So what we're going to do now is going to cross over to Matt. Let's get some learning, get those pens and papers ready, take those notes, and I'll speak to you after that.
Enjoy our podcast? Please remember to subscribe, rate, and review Kick Back with Chris on iTunes today.
Okay, guys, it's that time again in the week. It's time to join Matthew Chapman for our weekly Matt chat. How is it going, sir?
Very good. It's snowing here, unfortunately.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's glorious sunshine here.
Really?
Yeah, screw you and your weather.
Oh, damn it. It's all gone wrong in the new year.
Oh, dear me. So how are you going? How's things going, sir?
Yeah, very good. Working with a lot of instructors right now on various things, trying to help people with their websites, because I think a lot of instructors kind of throw up a website without actually thinking about what it really needs to convert people, and then kind of wonder why they don't get much back from their website. So I've been doing a lot of sort of done in a days with various instructors, just helping them build better websites.
You mean those animated kicking GIFs don't work?
Yeah, and all of that, yeah. And like a website, a homepage that's got 8,000 different things on it, things like that. Hello?
Oh, I lost you there for a second. Go on, you still
Oh,
there,
did you?
sir? Go on.
Yeah, so that type of thing, where the website is overly complex, too confusing, not structured well, tells them literally everything they need to know in their first year of training, just too much. So I've been helping them simplify and make more effective websites.
Yeah, I think it's. I was guilty of it. In fact, still am to a certain degree. Having a little bit too much on the website. An about us section that literally goes back to when I was at primary school.
Yeah.
My favorite food is beans on toast and all this sort of stuff. A little bit the sort of stuff that people don't really care about.
That's right. Yeah.
Little Jimmy's mum doesn't really care how many competitions I won.
No, that's the whole thing. And that's why I often say to instructors, just take off that page because it's literally pointless. Replace it with testimonials, video written and testimonials, so that people actually find out what other people have said about you, not just
Absolutely.
how wonderful we all are.
I think if people, if instructors are honest, and, I'll be straight up honest there as well. When I first launched my website, a lot of the time I was building it with competition in mind, or perceived competition in mind. What will the school up the road think? But they're not the people that really want to be. I don't care if they go on my website,
Exactly.
So,
and they're only going to check it once and then never go back. So it's just, pointless, really, isn't it?
Just clicking every page, going, look at this, look at this, and then they'll go on the contact us and then send you a funny message with a fake email address. Yeah.
Yes. It's so much fun, isn't it?
Not that I do that, just for the record.
Of course, yeah.
Cool. So, so you say you've been working with people to improve, simplify, get their websites to sort of get to the point, as it were?
Yeah, it's just, website is one of your main sources of inquiries, or it should be. People go on Google, they search for your martial arts school in your local area, they go to your website. So if your website is badly designed and doesn't work well on mobile, for example, and just doesn't look professional, people just click off and go to your competitors. So you're going to be losing out. So, you have to be able to take an objective look at your website, especially if you built it yourself. It's like your little baby and you don't take criticism very well of it. So, you need to look at it objectively, like someone who's never done martial arts ever before.
Absolutely. Again, I've done that, built my own website before. It's, we take it to heart a little bit, don't we? It's like a little personal project,
Yes, that's right.
One of the things that I learned, more, when I say more recently, sort of the recent years, is to build it and then send it to. The first thing I do is I send it to somebody that doesn't do martial arts at all.
Yeah.
I say, look at this. Does it make sense? Can you give me some honest feedback? And that I found that's a good way to do it. Nowadays it's generally my wife, because she doesn't care about martial arts one bit. She just sees it as that thing that means I'm always late back every evening, or injured.
Or injured, or away from home. Yeah, it's all good, isn't it?
Yeah. So I said, well, you can. I've changed this. Will you have a look? Works well for me.
Hello?
Oh, sorry. No, we had another dip there. I'm going to have a lot of editing to do on this one. This is going to be fun.
Sorry.
It's all right, don't worry. It's probably the internet connection at this end. It's been as ropey as can be, but hey, you can't. What can you do about it? So, what, other than obviously what we've discussed, what sort of advice would you have to people? Obviously this might cover both ends, but, people that already have an established website and people that might be looking to create a new one.
Yeah, if you've got an established website, that what you did with your friend and your wife is perfect. It's called a usability test. So you ask someone who's actually not interested in martial arts at all, and someone who will give you honest advice. So probably not a student or something like that. Someone who'll be honest with you and just say, look, have a look at this. Does it look clean, professional? Is it easy to use? Can you find my contact information? Can you find the kids' classes? Can you find the timetable? What do you think? Do you enjoy using it? And just get some honest feedback from someone who's not a martial artist and, you know, not obsessed like we are. And you'll get loads of things back from them. They'll say, no, I can't find your contact information and the text is too small and you haven't got any pictures and it looks a bit boring. That's one of the best things you can do for your website.
Awesome.
So, and speaking of websites, by the way, what I wanted to talk to you today was about the fact that we kind of, as martial artists, got a little bit lazy with our marketing efforts.
Okay.
Not you personally, Chris. You don't need to. I'm not telling you off.
I was sliding down the back of my chair there, like, oh,
yeah. Oh no, teacher's telling us off. Because with the advent of Google and websites and Facebook and all the social media, it's kind of got kind of easy for us to just put some stuff out there on social media, spend some money on some ads, and we've kind of almost forgotten the basics of sort of marketing in the local community. That's not to say you shouldn't do those things, and obviously I did all of those things, but you remember 20 years ago how we found students, right?
Yes.
So it was by grafting and hustling and getting them one at a time.
Lots of walking,
yes.
Lots of printing,
yes.
Lots of guillotine work.
Yes.
Blue tack, sellotape.
Yes.
Am I hitting all the right things?
Going into little shops and putting your little flyer up in the window.
Yeah, 50p for a week and all that.
That's right, yeah. And going into schools and doing demos and going to open days and doing demos and getting out in the community. And I think we still need to do that because it's still ridiculously effective.
Yeah, well, it was, obviously we wouldn't have been doing it otherwise in the first place.
Yes.
But no, I agree with you. I mean, you know, the prospect of being able to chuck 50 quid on a Facebook ad versus getting my shoes on and going for a walk, you can see why people, you know, would take that. But I think everybody's doing it now. You know,
yes.
I go and log onto my Facebook for my 5 minute sort of flick through Facebook in the morning, and the amount of other schools in my area that are running targeted adverts that are obviously within my age range demographic.
Yes.
It does make me think, you know, should I be perhaps looking at the options that they're perhaps not going for? So
yeah, exactly. So if you think you don't fancy going out in the rain and doing some flyering or whatever it requires, most of your instructors out there are not doing that either, which gives you an advantage because they won't be doing it. And people are so inundated on the web and the net now with ads and all of this coming at them that if you just put a flyer through someone's door, it tends to get a bit more traction nowadays, which is weird, you know, because in the old days when you went stopped flyering because we could use the internet, now it's gone the other way. That I have a student who has set up a school and she does a lot of Facebook stuff and she's getting traction on it, but when she does flyers she gets far more inquiries and far more signups, which is really odd. So it might be that it's kind of shifting the other way a little bit.
Yeah, what's actually really interesting, when we were just having this chat now, I've just realised, you know, we all do it, you know, the leaflet comes through the door from that other local school and you're like, oh, what they're doing putting that through my door, you know, like the leaflet person even knows that's your house. Do you know what I mean? But I can't actually remember the last time I got a leaflet from a martial arts school.
Oh, right, yes. So imagine you're the only one doing that in your local area.
Yeah.
You know, you're actually, and then you're backing it up with the Facebook stuff as well. So they see you on the Facebook community posts, you know, and they see your Facebook ad and they get a flyer through the door with a special, you know, offer. It's quite powerful. You're hitting them from different sides.
All those people that have never done Facebook adverts, they'll all be sat there really smug now going, see?
Yeah, but they missed out on all the other extra students because look, Facebook marketing works, Google marketing works, but so does old school marketing, going around, handing out flyers, having conversations with people, sticking your business card in Costas. That stuff still works and we shouldn't just not do it. I think it, in fact, gives us a little bit of an edge and is more effective nowadays.
Brilliant. Cool. So away from this side of things, was also, I actually discussed this on, I think it was our last episode or the episode before. I'm actually working through your level 1 Mittmaster instructional series at the minute, which I'm having great fun doing.
Cool.
I don't think I've spoken to you about this one yet, but now I'm working through it with one of my assistant instructors there. I'm making them be the students, as it were. It's going well. It's going
Good.
well.
I'm glad. Are you finding it different, challenging, interesting?
Well, yeah, because I've been working the way that I work now for 20 years. The drills that I've done. I've done for 20 years, so it's engaging in the sense that it's getting me to think different things. I've already picked up several different approaches. Actually, I would say better approaches in some respects to holding the pads and the way I work with the student. So it's definitely proving worthwhile.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with instructors like me and you is we've been doing it such a long time that we don't really get to learn new things, new ideas, new ways of doing things now, because we've just been doing it so long, haven't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
And sometimes to just keep it fresh for yourself as well, just investigating a different way of doing things or checking out a different style or a different method of presentation, like sparks your creativity and gets you all fired up and excited again. And obviously an excited instructor is a better instructor.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the biggest problems that I've had, and I know, I'm guilty of saying this all the time, like if you want to do something, you make time for it. But the problem that I've got is that it's not just a case of making time, it's the travel involved as well. And a lot of the times by the time I've dropped the kids off at school and then I've come in and I've done a little bit of admin work, or I've even spoken to somebody else about doing the admin work, I don't have time to go off and train out of the area and get back in time for classes later and even all the school runs. So the fact that I can do this online,
yes,
has helped, because it's not for lack of wanting to do something and learn new things. It's just the logistics of it as a full-time instructor, the way I run my school, which I need to work on myself. I admit to that. I'm still very wearing all the hats to a certain degree, but that's how it is now. So the fact that I could do this online has been fantastic.
Yeah, well, it's convenient, isn't it? And it just makes life easier. You can just do it whenever you like, study the drills, work them with your students, and then you find a little variation that's a little bit different. You then test it out in class. You get to drill it, they get to drill it. You see what sort of response you get. It's good, isn't it?
Yeah, so hopefully this time 2025 I'll have finished it. And
No, shouldn't take you that long. Most people do it.
No. I'm getting on. I'm doing it. I'm actually doing it properly. I'm setting
good. I'll keep nagging you until you complete it.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Watch this space, guys. All right, guys. So thanks again, Matt, for your time. Have you anything cool coming up this week, or anything you want to share before you head off?
I'm just running around the country, slapping instructors around the head and telling them to sort their websites out, mainly. That is my current job.
So if you feel a slap on the back of your head anytime in the coming weeks, then
it'll be me.
Brilliant.
And I'll say, sort your website out.
Yeah. All right, Matt. Well, thanks for your time as always, and we'll catch up next week.
Thank you, mate. Bye.
Cheers, bye.
You're listening to Kick Back with Chris, the martial arts podcast, brought to you by www.onlinekicking.co.uk.
Thanks again, Matt. Always a pleasure to have you on the show. Good learning experience, as always. So, just before we cut away to Matt's section, I actually mentioned my previous interview in the last show with Mr. Andy Crittenden over in Doncaster. Now, it was one of our rare in-person interviews, and what actually followed from that conversation was probably another 2 hours of chatting, of catching up, of us, talking even more in depth and further on our sort of experiences and sort of borderline adventures working for various martial arts schools back in the 2000s. And after that conversation, I actually spoke to Andy again, and he expressed an interest in potentially becoming a semi-regular co-host on the show. So from next week's episode, what we're going to do is we're actually going to be chatting with Andy on a semi-regular basis. Obviously, he's a very busy guy with multiple schools and tournaments and all the other things that he does. But we're going to talk about his experiences growing his school, the challenges he's faced. along the similar sort of lines to the things that what we realised was we both had, even though we run very, very different schools, we both faced similar challenges along the way, and we thought it would be good to share those with people that have had schools for many years, full-time schools or not, and people who are interested in building up their school, share our experiences, both positive and negative, just to get that information out there. So a couple of extra things that I didn't actually talk about at the opening of the show, but I'm sure you all noticed, or most of you have noticed, we've got a new logo. Very, very cool. Obviously, it's integrating the elements of the first logo, which, truth be told, honestly, that logo is actually, well, it's an animated version of myself. That a friend had made up for me, and it's actually the design that goes on the back of the t-shirts for the kids group in my club. And when I first launched the podcast, iTunes needed you to upload a logo, and I didn't have one. And that image was sat on my desktop ready to get sent over to the printers. So I just used it and didn't change it. And so everybody sort of got familiar with that logo design. Now, I'm sure many of you have noticed that there's the script in the background of the image is actually Taekwondo. And this isn't a Taekwondo show, so I figured it was probably about time that I actually got a proper logo drawn up. So incorporating that image as it's already established, Victoria over at Caldwell Design and Marketing very, very kindly whisked up that logo for us in super quick time, so big thanks to her for that. So that will be the logo that you'll be seeing now going forwards for the show. Now, I'm actually in discussions at the moment with a number of companies to get it put onto sort of t-shirts and hoodies and mugs and key rings and everything you can think of. And I'm going to be putting that store up online. So, if you want to get something, it'll help to cover the show costs. Now that I'm getting out and about more, obviously that's fuel costs. That's all the different expenses involved with running the podcast. So if you want to buy something, that would be really cool. And then especially if we go to an event and I see you in it, I would probably die on the spot. That'd be so cool to see somebody wearing our podcast logo on something they've purchased. That'd be really, really cool. So I've mentioned Andy, I've mentioned the logo. The final thing to mention really before we go is our next guest. Really, really pleased to be able to announce that next week I'm going to be talking to the martial artist, business owner, entrepreneur, Mrs. Zara Fithian. She's very, very kindly agreed to come onto the show. Somebody I've known for a very long time. We've actually worked on a number of productions together, but not at the same time. We'll probably end up talking about this as well in the interview, but really looking forward to having her on to talk about all things martial arts business and obviously the film work and the other things that she's involved with as well. So you can look forward to that one next week. If you have any questions for her, as always, you can get us on our Facebook group. So if you look for Kickback Podcast on the Facebook group, and also if you go to kickbackpodcast.com, you can send us an email through there, or alternatively, old-fashioned, you can send us a text or phone call at 07802 889 391. Thanks again, guys. I hope you have a great weekend or a great day, whatever day it is, wherever you are. And I will speak to you all next time.